video is sponsored by Squarespace.
Well, I'm not very happy because I'm wearing a coat and it's cold and it's wet and it's dark because it's officially fall on the farm. And so I'll give you a tour and let you know what the flower farm's looking like. But we're not gonna start down here on the farm. We're gonna head up to the front where I've been waiting all season to show off how good my garden's looking. I'm really excited about this garden. You know, it looked a lot better last week. The rain kind of knocked things down and my glads are finishing up. But this has been a really exciting addition this year. This is along the road where our roadside stand is. So it's our face to our customers. Kaya, are you being a crazy cat? We planted a ton of stuff up here in the spring, and the intention was all stuff that can handle the heat. It gets really hot up here, like 50 Celsius. We don't even know how hot. Too hot for our thermometer to register. So we got a lot of heat lovers. We have things like marigolds and celosia and portulaca and geraniums, stuff that I knew would do well with the crazy heat. And it's been quite a success. Things look lovely up here. It's thrived throughout the heat and the summer, and we've had so many compliments from our customers. Next year we want to change it up a bit. We want to get more perennials in here, but I'm really excited with what it's turned out like so far, and I can't wait to make it even bigger. On the farm, things are looking a little sad, a little tired. It's that time of year when the nights are cold enough and the days don't have enough heat. So things kind of just aren't really growing. They're kind of just coasting until frost comes, which at this point is probably best case scenario 2 weeks away. So we really are at the end of the season. And you know, it's always sad for me because you can see that the plants, you know, aren't in their prime. But there's one spot on the farm that is looking pretty good, and that is inside our Dahlia and Miscanthus tunnel. So these dahlias have their very first bloom of the year, which was the plan. This isn't a crop failure. This was the plan. Dahlias do not like my hot, dry summers. I really struggle with them. They get diseased and then they don't produce in the fall when I would actually really like dahlias. So this year we planted dahlias end of June in the tunnel with the plan that we would then close the tunnel as we go into this fall season, and these would have a nice big strong flush that would cover our Thanksgiving, which is coming up in a couple weeks, and it would allow us to finish up really strong. They're not doing exactly what I thought they'd do. I thought they would be blooming by now. You know, I've sold like one dahlia. So I think that next year I'll be planting them earlier. I'll be planting them like beginning of June, not end of June. But the plants are really healthy, which, you know, was the goal. That was the thing that they hadn't done in years past. And I do think 2 weeks from now, you know, with this tunnel closed up, with some of the extra heat, they're gonna do really good. And the colors are incredible. Yeah, these great pink colors. We got some oranges, really tropical vibes. But at the same time, I think they're gonna look really nice in like fall kind of orange, yellow, brown palettes. I'm really excited. The other exciting thing that we have going on in this tunnel is my Miscanthus, which is done. There's only a few left that's available for me to pick, but, you know, this is like best case scenario for me on Miscanthus. They're sending up a second flush. So because these are in a tunnel, if these were out in the field, I don't think that I'd be able to get a second pick off of them because they're not going to bloom before the first frost comes. But because they're protected in the tunnel, I might actually be able to have the end of my season with Miscanthus again, which is going to be really great. They're a little short, you know, they're not as tall as those first cuts, but, you know, I was just saying to Ian for our Thanksgiving, similar to Mother's Day, when these more expensive items like vase arrangements or table centerpieces, things that you don't want to be super tall, they actually sell really well. So we can take these short Lizzianthus and turn it into an even more expensive item than, you know, a tall Lizzianthus inside of a market bouquet. It's really nice and warm in here, so I don't really want to leave. Go back into the cold farm, but the tour must go on. This is the very bottom of our farm. This is the end of our property here. And this is the very latest plantings that I did in the summer. So that means it's actually what looks the most beautiful now. So we'll keep with the theme of starting with the most beautiful, and I'll show you all the things that suck at the end. At the very bottom of my farm, there's a bunch of beds that are just weeds because I never planted them and didn't use them. And then we come to a spot that I only go to once a year in the fall, and you guys might not even know I have this, but I have a 50-foot row of mixed Miscanthus grasses that are just for this fall season to have these beautiful grass plumes. So I love them. I love the look of them. Some of them are more closed and upright. Some of them are more of like a fountain shape. And then I have them in a mix of colors. There's some that are red, some of that are more browns. I think we planted about 6 or 7 different varieties in this bed. And these get very neglected, so they're not very strong despite them being 3 years old. But I love them, and this year I think I probably have 1,000 stems, which is just incredible. This, we stick 1 or 2 of them into our fall bouquets. They add this incredible kind of corn tassel texture, some browns, and then whatever we don't use, we dry. And when this Miscanthus grass dries, it goes from being smooth and sleek, and then it kind of puffs out and it gets really soft, and it gets these like white tones to it, and it just looks really magical. Pampas grass is not available here. It can't survive in our weather, and so this is the closest that we can get to a local pampas grass is what this looks like when it's dry. Here's another row here that I haven't really showed off too much. This is my 50-foot bed of cherry tomatoes, which are all for me. They are not for sharing. We've been eating pretty good. Me and Nellie, we've both been having our fill of cherry tomatoes. We got a bunch of Juliets, and they're not liking the rain. They're all splitting, so I guess I have to eat them all. Down here is where we have our cosmos. This year we planted 3 beds, which is an insane amount of cosmos. I definitely did not need that many, which is why there's so many cosmos behind me. But this is the time of year when I'm starting to be glad that I do have that many, because the cosmos aren't really going to be growing much at this point. The cosmos are very, very sensitive to cold. They will die even before frost, just on a cold night. They're kind of my canary in the coal mine for knowing when frost is coming. They'll die before anything else. These cool nights and cool days are not what they like. They like the hot summers. So what I have is what I have. So when I come out here, I'm going to be picking, half of it this week and half of it next week, so that I have flowers, right? I have to be more intentional about, how I manage these plants. When I come and I harvest a cosmo stem, what I do is I reach really far into the plant and I pick, a long stem. I need snips to be able to do this. So I pick this big long stem down off of the bottom, and then the cosmo plant will, from wherever the pick is, it'll send up 2 stems to grow nice and tall, and that's what I'll pick, the next time I pick. Cosmos are like weeds, right? So in the summer when I pick that, right, then we have these 2 little side shoots for stems to grow, and honestly in like 2 weeks these will be like big huge stems for me to cut. But at this point I cut this isn't really gonna grow. I'm not gonna get another stem after I cut off the stem. So I need to be really intentional. There is a good chance that stuff like this, right? Like this stem that has grown, this will open, this will bud, right? So this will be here for me next week. You know, things like this, which are starting to grow, they're never gonna grow into a big long stem to use. You start to have to kind of plan what you're gonna need in the future at this time of year on the farm. The marigolds are the exact same way. You know, like the flowers that are quite closed or the buds, these will still keep opening, but I'm not gonna get more stems to grow on the plant. So I only have what is on the plant already. And at the same time, one of the problems with marigolds, this is a good example, is the flowers are so big. So as we get into this wet weather, because I don't stake anything, because we never get rain, the plants get filled with rain and then they fall over, which can affect the plants as well. So as I come into these marigolds, you know, I'm not gonna pick every single stem. I'm gonna go, oh, okay, there's 50 stems there. Let's do 20 this week, 20 next week, and then I'll have 10 that are still available into the future. The planning, you know, just gets a little bit more complicated. And yet again, the same thing is going on with my zinnias, right? So there are stems here. There's like this bud, right? And this may open, right? You know, here's kind of the development phase. It's gonna go from that, into that, into that, into that. But there also is a chance that in this time of year, this might not actually develop into a full flower. They start to get, you know, a little bit diseased, maybe a little bit cold sensitive. You know, some of the stuff starts to look like this. I don't know that that's gonna open up and ever be usable. So as I go through my zinnias, you know, I'm thinking cautiously, like, okay, like if I pick every single zinnia that's ready out of here, am I gonna have any next week? Will some of these zinnias hold on the plant for, you know, another 4 days type thing? Zinnias don't necessarily have the best vase life, and especially at this time of year. Let me show you why. My Benneries Giant, which is what I was showing you, has excellent downy mildew resistance. It's one of the reasons that everyone should grow Benneries Giant. It's just so disease resistant. And honestly, I'm so dry here that we don't really have a lot of issues with like molds and mildews in the plants. But zinnias are just like disease factories. And so here is my Zowie, and this does not have downy mildew resistance. And so here is what downy mildew looks like. You know, just like these black spots, right? So these plants are diseased. And when the plants get diseased, it then leads to the flowers getting diseased. Here's a good example, right? These spots on the flowers. And that is a problem, not necessarily because of the spots. You know, I could get away with some polka dot flowers. The problem is that the vase life is greatly affected once they get quite diseased like this. So even on patches where maybe it looks like there's a lot of flowers, like in here I still have a lot more. Not all of these are gonna be usable stems. And in here, you know, I maybe need to be a little bit more aggressive about picking out the stuff that is in like early stages of disease, which, you know, will next week be completely gone, and then save the stuff that isn't diseased for in the weeks to come. You know, this fall weather, at this point the plants have suffered. I've mistreated them all summer. No plant wants to grow in Kelowna, where we are basically a desert in the summer, and I do not water the way they want to be watered. So at this point the plants are just, they're not happy with me. They've had lots of chances for diseases to get into them, and so they're suffering from the weather conditions not being ideal, and they're also suffering from exposure to disease and pests that they've been with for the last 3 months. Things just don't always look great, but it is what it is. It's just this time of year. Seeing this disease in this patch, I'm not like, oh no, what am I gonna do? I'm just like, oh yeah, it's fall. And as a flower farmer, I'm like the flowers. I've suffered through the summer and I'm kind of over it too. So I'm like, whatever. Let's get on to the next season. I'm done with all this flower picking. When's it gonna be Christmas? When can I make Christmas wreaths? I know I've featured this in like every single one of the farm tours, but it's because I'm super excited, and I can safely say now that this is like fall and we're getting close to the end that I did it. I did the glads properly. Even though I messed up, there was actually one more succession of glads that I didn't get done. So what I did here is every 2 weeks, I planted up 200 or 300 glads into bulb crates. So what I did here is I got these bulb crates, filled it up with some dirt, glads, dirt on top, and then I just threw them in this line, right? And so what this meant was that I always had glads coming on, right? And so this glad succession here, this is almost done. This pink is the last to bloom, and this is my second to last succession. And then over here, I've had this, which is my very last succession, blooming for about a week now. So I still have another 2 weeks on this before it hits pink, right? Like that's kind of the timing. And it's been great. They bloomed really successfully. I haven't really had very many losses out of the crates. Everything has done really well. They've self-supported each other because I planted them so densely. It's been great to just always have some glads to work with. Glads are not like a crazy seller here for me. Some people like them, but a lot of people don't. So, you know, having like 100 glads every week has been perfect. It's been making it so I can have a selection for people without ever being like overwhelming the stand with glads. No one would ever look at our flower display and be like, oh, that's a lot of glads. Our season, our zone, we're zone 5. Glads should be borderline perennial here, but they're not. We don't get enough snow. So if I want to be able to save these bulbs, which I might, I need to get these inside. And the one thing that I'm really excited about is they're already in crates, right? So I can just cut the greens off once we get a frost here, and then take the entire crate, put it in my garage and overwinter it, and then pull them out come spring and, you know, kind of have another big flush of glads without any sort of work. No matter what though, I'm buying more glads next year and I'm doing the succession again. This has worked really, really well, you know, and I think it's something that people could even do on a smaller scale as a home gardener, kind of just throughout the summer, spring, summer, just plant a few glads here and there to always have a show of them. I always joke that I'm a bad flower farmer, and the reason why you know I'm a bad flower farmer is because I have so many flowers in my field. If you're a good flower farmer, your field should just be blank and green. And so this here behind me is a great example of I did something right. There is not a single bloom that you can see. All you can see is beautiful green plants. And what this is this is straw flowers. And this year, instead of cutting stems on the straw flowers, which means the plants would have been, you know, chopped down, we only grew them for the flower heads, right? And so this is the stage at which we are actually coming and we are harvesting our straw flowers. We're picking off the little bud heads, taking them inside and drying them for using for winter crafts. I like straw flower in bouquets, but it's not the easiest plant to manage. I find them to be very difficult to pick and to strip, and then the heads can be quite heavy, and then they kind of like nod down. So for me, the main thing that I've wanted to do with them is to have them for crafting, and we did a really excellent job of it. The fact that you can't tell that I have like 8 different colors of straw flowers in these 3 beds means success. Success. I'm a proper flower farmer this year. More successes, more things that I'm excited about this year. We have more of our marigolds. I already showed you the way that I kind of need to manage these at this point. I actually have 3 beds of marigolds because I love them. I want like 4 stems in every single bouquet. This year, what we did on the marigolds is we grew new varieties. We grew cocoa in gold, which isn't in here, cocoa in orange, which is this, and then cocoa yellow. And they've been excellent. They've been really, really great. They bloomed super early and they're very strong, continuous bloomers. We've been picking off of the marigolds, I don't know, what do you think? Like 2 months?
Long time, yeah.
Yeah, a really long time. And like they've been prolific. We've been picking heavy on them. This bed, we'd come and pick like 200 stems off of this every single week. And they've just produced and produced and produced. And the marigold that I grew last year was from Johnny's, and it was just, I think it was just like giant yellow or something like that was the name of it. And I found that it didn't continue this late in the season. It was kind of done before the frost. It kind of had stopped blooming out, and it didn't bloom as early. So I cannot recommend the cocoa variety enough. Very, very strong plants. Great cut flowers. Our customers love them. No one knows that they're marigolds, but all they know is whatever it is, they want it. New this year for us is this Floss Flower or Agratum. I have zero clue how to say its Latin name, so I just call it Floss Flower. This, when I planted it, was like this big. They were very, very sad micro soil blocks, and they stayed this big for months. And I was like, well, that was a good lesson to learn how to not grow it. I was convinced I wasn't gonna be able to get any cuts off of it at all. But then it felt like it was overnight. I went to bed and I woke up and it was like Jack in the Beanstalk style. It had just gotten super tall, and it's been great. The color on it and the fuzzy little puff, it's really unique. It's a great filler. We're always looking for something blue because we make rainbow bouquets. Rainbow bouquets are our #1 bestseller, so I need blue throughout the season, and it can be one that's hard to find. This has been really, really important to us in being able to keep selling, our best bouquet recipe design. We have way too much of it. You can see the brown in it. You can see that it's kind of looking a little ratty. At this point, it's difficult for me to pick even because there's so much deadheading that kind of needed to happen that didn't happen. Going forward, I'm gonna grow a lot less of this. It is great for adding to the blue, but it also takes a lot of work to harvest and manage it. So I think the only thing that I would kind of grow it for is to be able to do up our rainbow bouquets. If I make 40 of them a week, and I use 3 stems of this, then I only need 60 stems a week available, which means I don't need, the 350 plants that I have planted here. But super fun. Really enjoyed growing this. Another unexpected success this year has been my Anise Hyssop bed. Same story as the Floss Flower. I planted it. They were sad plugs, and they stayed sad for 2 months. And I was like, you know what? It's fine. They'll overwinter. I'll have them next year. It's not a complete loss. And then some heat hit and they just took off. And it's been incredible because my other healthier and happier Anise Hyssop up in my perennial beds have stopped a long time ago, and this has been the main filler that I've been using for most of the season. I think that it's getting affected by the cold. I think that this is it getting touched with frost. So some spots of it are not great for me to pick, but I've been kind of picking from the front down with the intention that it's like, okay, I'll pick from here this week and save this other patch next week so I have it. And I think I'm gonna time it really great. Down at the end, it's still really full. I have 2 more weeks of picking. I have 2 more spots to pick. I should be able to have this finish off the season for me. And it smells amazing. It smells like sweet licorice. Almost like like ouzo. And then the only other filler that I've been using right now is my cinnamon basil. And this I was really nervous about. I had intended to do 2 successions. At this point, the only basil that I grow is the cinnamon basil, this purple one, and I don't pick it until it has these like very developed and finished flower spikes. And I love it for the smell. It smells delicious. I love harvesting these because I come inside and I smell amazing for a day. And then it also has this like really unique, darker, dramatic color. And so the thing that I was nervous about is I need this for my fall bouquet designs. In the fall, we go away from like rainbow and we go into like moody colors. So I need like these dark purples and burgundies, the oranges, the brown grasses, that kind of look. And like I said, the plan was 2 successions, but I only planted 1. I realized too late that I hadn't gotten my second succession in, and so I wasn't sure how I was going to be able to get this to tide me over until that fall season. So I had been picking really lightly on it, and I did something new this year that's been a really good success. Okay, so here is a succession that I picked off of, I think 2 weeks ago. And so in the past, the way that I would have picked the basil is I would have gone down to the very bottom of the plant and cut it off at dirt level, just because it's a lot easier to just take the whole plant out and then process it out of the field. These, you know, you can kind of see how tangled all these stems are. But what I did this year, and I had lots of height, so I wasn't too worried, is I actually picked it a little bit higher, right? So this is a good example, right? You can see that instead of down at the bottom, I picked it high, and then I left a few of these kind of like side branches to keep growing, and they did, right? This is 2 weeks ago when I picked this, you know, these would have been little baby side branches, and they've already started to get some length. And then as we move back through the, you know, the weeks of picking, you know, like here's 3 weeks ago, you can see how much the plant has grown back, right? Like we're starting to get a lot of new growth on it. You know, we go, here's 4 weeks ago, you know, it's starting to look like a baby plant. And then we get to, you know, some of my first picks, and it's ready to be picked again. I'm not probably going to pick this week, but next week, you know, where I was nervous I wasn't going to have this, which I need lots of for Thanksgiving, because of kind of this cut and come again way that I was managing it this year. Now I'm gonna have tons to use. I'm really excited about this. This variety name is specifically Arameadow. So I don't know if this variety is just really good at coming back from how I cut it, or if my conditions were just perfect for it. But if I can replicate this is pretty great. Having this grow back so strong has really saved my butt this year. Behind me is my status field, which I've been really happy with this year. The trick with status is it likes cool weather. So if you can get it established early on, it handles the heat quite well, and it produces, like, it is a real cut and come again. I come out here every week and I can harvest off of this every week. In the height of summer, I get a really big flush of it, which is great. I have like 100,000 stems. Not actually, that's an exaggeration, but it feels like that. And that I can't use, so that is what I kind of save and I put up to be my dried flower collection. And then at this point, I can come out here and, you know, I can kind of get a bucket off of every single one of my colors, and then I have it to be my filler for in my bouquets. It's been excellent for me in the fact that it fills me up on dried flowers, and it's available for me every week, just hundreds and hundreds of stems. This, you know, I planted as my like good as cut flowers bed. So in with my status, I have my Amobium, and Amobium, same as the status. It likes the cool weather. It's more of a spring crop. So this had bloomed. I got a big pick off of it early in the year, and then it's just been very sad all summer. But with the cooler nights, the shorter days, it has started to bloom again. It sent up the second flush for me, which is really exciting. And the plants are looking like really happy and healthy. If we had more of a fall season, the problem with Kelowna is we don't really have spring or fall. We just go from like, it's too cold to call it spring straight to summer. If you're a place that has, you know, a nice long fall, I imagine this could be an amazing fall crop. It keeps coming and coming. I'm really happy with it. I also recently found a not so fun fact that I never knew about Statice that I thought I'd share with you guys. Come fall, I always get Statice that starts to be like this. Or you can see on this plant, there's a lot of red in here, you know, or this stem, you know, it's a little bit of freckling. I always thought that this was being caused from the cold. It was kind of, you know, oh, it's turning red like the leaves when the daylight changes, or maybe it just got touched a little bit by cold and it didn't like it and it was discoloring. But apparently this is Astors yellow disease, which we prolifically have all over our farm. This is how Statice responds to it. You know, at this point in my beds, probably about half of my plants are showing signs of this. And like I said, we don't have much of a fall season, right? So these plants are gonna die with frost coming up pretty soon. So this isn't an issue for me, but you know, if you've been struggling with something like that, I've heard that lots of people are having issues with it this year. And so if you have that look in your field, you may be like me and suffering from disease. 2 years ago, we used to be a veggie farm that sold a few flowers. And in this part of the farm, we had a bed of Swiss chard. And it overwintered, and last year I had a great greenery in Swiss chard flowering stems. It was like covered in seeds. It was, I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. But I guess it threw Swiss chard seeds all over the farm. And so now this bed was a weedy mess all year. But as I went and I dug through and I removed some of the weeds, it turns out I actually have an entire bed of Swiss chard. So we have lots of greens for us to eat over the next couple of weeks. And come next year, I'll have my favorite filler back again. Swiss chard flowering stalks. So that's exciting. Ian hates showing this kind of stuff, but I'm forcing him. So behind me is a huge weedy mess. And this is what most flower farms tend to look like at this time of year, because it gets hard to keep up with everything. This is all stuff that was spring crops that either failed and so we just let the weeds overtake it, or it's stuff that, you know, we had been picking off of in the summer, but as it finished, you know, it was kind of like, just leave it, we'll mow it at the end of the season. You know, this here is our entire bed of Bells of Ireland, which you wouldn't know because you can't see any of the Bells of Ireland left. This doesn't stress me out. I know Ian hates it because he likes it to look nice and clean and pretty, but we come in here with a mower or we leave it for over the winter and we remove it in the spring. You know, this is cover crop. It's not gonna cause any damage. Ideally, we wouldn't be dropping weed seeds into the farm, but you know, it's the end of the season. You gotta work on what is the priorities, and what the priorities are for me is getting the money out of the field, like this bed of zinnias. This is my Lime Queen zinnias bed. And it is similar to the zowies that I was showing you, where it's a little bit more susceptible to disease. I'm gonna say this again, Bennery's Giant. Grow Bennery's Giant. It does not have as many disease issues. So, you know, it's started to get some of the disease in there. There's lots and lots of stems, but I'm gonna have to do the same thing, right? I'm not gonna get much more blooming. I just need to, you know, get what I can out of this over the next couple of weeks. And then this is the bed of Rudbeckia that I've been mainly picking off of this year. And because I picked it so aggressively in the spring, I basically almost had it like cut down. There wasn't anything left to cut for a while. And now it's grown back with this really beautiful fall flush. Really strong, really clean plants, nice long stems because I'd cut it down so low. This is great. Indian summer Rudbeckia is, you know, such a perfect fall flower. I combine that with some of my orange marigolds. We get some of that grass that I've shown you guys, you know, some of that cinnamon basil, like Thanksgiving. Perfect Thanksgiving bouquet. Because some of my main crops, the things that I've been relying on week after week, are going to get a little thinner. As you know, as I've been talking about, you know, I have to kind of be conscious of having enough before frost comes without much more coming on. So there are some beds that are doing like a second flush that don't really produce very much. Like this is Feverfew. So some people find that you can get 2 cuts off of Feverfew. Feverfew for me, I think I just don't have quite a long enough season, but there are some stuff I can use in here. Normally I wouldn't bother to come in and to fight to try to find 25 stems of Feverfew. It's just not worth the work when I could just pick 25 stems of Zinnias or 25 stems of Marigolds, stuff that is a lot easier for me to manage. But as things get limited on the farm, these bits and pieces being available become valuable and worth the extra time investment. Some of the stuff doesn't really look like anything. It's like, why aren't I cleaning it up ahead of time? But this could save my butt. My other bed of butt savers is all my perennials up here. This is my, you know, early summer blooming perennials. This is stuff that I planted to be able to tide me over on this weird mid-season when things like my tulips and ranunculus are done, but my summer blooming annuals in the main farm aren't going. This is where I'm making most of my bouquets. So I have stuff like phlox and yarrow and solidago and, you know, just a whole mix of stuff. And it's doing the same thing too, where some of it is sending up a second flush. It's been incredible. I can't have this happen every year with every crop, but I've been really happy with being able to get a few phlox here and there. My solidago has been able to get picked again, which has been amazing because that yellow is so fall. This doesn't do much. This is mainly here for just that one period in the summer. It's always amazing what you can scrounge. And let's end the video on a crop failure. Behind me is one of my most important fall crops on the farm because it is one of the few things that can survive a frost and still be available for me to sell, but not this year. This is my sedum, and I've had tons of issues with the sedum this year. A bunch of it died. I apparently was maybe overwatering it. And this variety that didn't die is a complete loss to aphids. So this is just a disgusting buggy mess. And it's not a surprise because it's been a buggy mess all summer. So I knew it was gonna be like this. It looks very dramatic for the camera because it looks so bad. When plants get stressed out, they are susceptible to pests, right? And one of our biggest pests here is the aphids. And so I'm not too surprised. This whole bed has had a lot of issues this year, so I'm not surprised that the aphids moved in and took it out. I am disappointed because I would have liked to have this. I probably have like 300-400 stems in here, which, you know, could have been a lot of bouquets, and instead there's going to be 0 sedum stems. But the one nice thing about the perennials is they come back next year, and, you know, I can take the things that I learned, like don't water it so much, and make changes for next year and hopefully not have this repeat again. Fall on the farm is always very bittersweet for me. I'm usually feeling a little tired by this point in the season, so I am, ready for rest, and seeing the farm also being ready for rest, kind of putting itself to bed for the winter, gives me the feelings of being able to look forward to some rest for myself. But I'm really gonna miss the flowers, and I'm gonna miss getting to spend so much time out in the field. Luckily, I have so many videos and pictures to look back on to get me through the cold winter months. I'm looking forward to the rest, but I'm sad to see my flowers fading away. But I suppose there's always next year, and even better, there's seed shopping for next year. So it's not all bad. My fresh flowers are almost done, but I still have an entire room full of dried flowers, so flower sales aren't ending anytime soon here, but these are mostly going to be sold online, and I'm really excited about our sponsor Squarespace because they've helped me set up a website. Squarespace is the ultimate platform for creating your dream website. With flexible business templates, you can start with professional design that fits your category and customize it to match your unique style. Be it a professional blog, a portfolio, or a business website, Squarespace ensures your online presence stands out on every device. But it's not just about being seen. It's a great way to sell. Whether you're selling physical, digital, or service products, Squarespace provides you with the tools you need to launch your online store effortlessly. From inventory management to secure payment processing, Squarespace has got you covered. And if, like me, you also sell in person, Squarespace offers point-of-sale integration. Connect a Square Reader to the Squarespace app and sync your orders, inventory, and customer data with your online store, making it easy to carry your business anywhere. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/youcaneatthegrass to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.